Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of our series, Viive Values. Today's guest is Sarah Hines, and I'm just gonna add her here so that we can get talking about the good stuff. I can't believe this is our 5th episode. It's been so awesome to have so many people watch our previous episodes and ask questions. It's been really great. We've got a lot of really awesome guests lined up all the way to the end of June, I believe, at this point right now, which is really wonderful. All righty, just waiting on Sarah here to come on board. Just sending her a message, making sure that she saw the invite, and we will get going. Now, we're going to do Viive Values all the way up through the end of June, like I said, and we have all of our guests set up already. But if you have a particular topic or a guest that you think we should have on, please let us know. We're going to take a break in July and August, just so that everyone can enjoy their summers and whatnot. But then we're going to be right back at it in September. So if there is anyone that you think we should be chatting with just to learn more about the work that they do, then please let us know. Now, we're just having a little bit of difficulty getting Sarah on. 1 second. Here we go. Oh, yay!
We did it.
We did it. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm so good. Thank you for your patience with me.
Oh, no worries. Oh my gosh. Tech, right? It's just that's not our jam. You and I are people. We're people. We're not tech people. So no worries at all.
I hear you. Thank
Good.
you.
Of course. Let me just share with everyone a little bit about you so they know who you are, all right? So everybody, this is Sarah Hines. She's the founder of Grief Advocacy, Inc. Now, I was on her website and she has so many certifications that I'm not going to list them all right now and just spare you all that, but I encourage you to go see them. But some that I found particularly interesting is that she is a home hospice care provider for adults and children, which I think is really wonderful. She's certified funeral celebrant, certified grief recovery specialist, and as I said, so much more. She is leading the charge, which is so needed, in educating companies on how to support their employees when they're returning to work after suffering a loss and experiencing their personal grieving process. And she also speaks a lot about finding pleasure in life while grieving, which I think is really important and something that we think shouldn't go together, but definitely should.
Yeah.
And I pulled a really beautiful quote from Sarah's website that I thought would help us to kick off our interview here, which is this: "It is our relationship with grief that is the foundation for how we love, for how we receive, and for how we will live on in the hearts of others." I thought that was so beautiful and that it would be a great way for us to just dive in here together.
That's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good one. It
That's a
has
big
a lot of
one.
layers. Has a lot of layers.
We really dove in. We went right for it.
We did. Well, here, let me get you talking here, Sarah. That's what people care about. So why don't you tell me, what is grief advocacy and what is the work that you really love to focus on?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I think most people hear that name and they go, like, I don't get it. Like, what are we advocating for? Like all the pain and all the suffering that we go through?
Right.
And my short answer is, yeah. I truly believe that the best of us is found when we feel like we are at our least. And that grief is one of those places. And if we actually accepted grief as one of the most beautiful things that could ever happen to us, then we can then begin to normalize the conversations inside of workplace, inside of family, inside of friendships, and have a better relationship with death, ultimately. Yeah.
That's really powerful. It's definitely something that's becoming more accepted, more widestream. People are talking about it more and more. And I think as we see the baby boomer generation age and then eventually die, we're going to have this the largest population of people dying in a certain period of time. And I think my hope, I'm sure it's your hope, is that it kind of forces us as a society to become more comfortable with this experience. And it's interesting because I feel like you go way back in the olden days, I mean, really far back. And because death was much more frequent because of a lack of medical interventions, there was so much more acceptance around it in a way.
That's it, right?
Hmm.
And I think the other part of it too is like people used to die at home all the time,
Yeah.
right? Now it's a choice people didn't know they
Hmm.
had. So
Hmm.
the distance from that is generations,
Oh, for sure.
right? We've got 2 or 3 generations of that. And I think like because it's sad, parents, our boomer parents, don't want to talk about it. They don't
Hmm.
want to upset their children.
Yeah.
We have a really hard time with the idea
Hmm.
that that we that our siblings or our children are going to struggle, and so we decide that we don't want to burden them and don't want to have those conversations. So I imagine like even having a conversation about getting a will sorted is really difficult for a lot of our parents to even
Hmm.
have, and they do it. If they do organize it, it's because they don't want to be a burden, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's just an interesting societal shift, I think, when we
Hmm.
go from a time where death was honored in our home to now we don't even want to talk about it.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly. We've also tied so much superstition and taboo to it as well. I mean, I think there was always superstition and taboo in a lot of the various religions that
yeah,
we have in our world, but
yeah.
even in a completely non-secular way, right? People think,
That,
"Oh, I'm tempting fate if I talk about dying one day." I mean, even I, in the work that I do, I still feel that way, right? It's something that's just been sort of brainwashed into me, I'm sure, right, through media and whatnot over my lifetime. But it's interesting how that really plagues people, that idea of superstition.
well, and I think like so, and getting down into it, right?
Hmm.
Like anything that's difficult is hard to talk about, right?
Yes.
And and if we're not
Hmm.
practiced at it, then of course it's going to be hard,
Right.
right? Public speaking is, at the top of everyone's most nervous
Yeah.
list, right?
Yes.
And
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
is death, and it doesn't surprise me. But at the same time, right? I think we can all logically agree
Hmm.
that any time that we've had to do anything really hard, good things have happened for us.
Yeah. Right.
Generally speaking, right? When we have to look at trauma, good things
Hmm.
happen for us. When we have to take care of our mental health, good things happen for us,
Exactly.
right? When we have to go through big decision, typically good things happen for
Hmm.
us. So I think like we just have to, I guess, stop being comfortable and go towards
Hmm.
change a little bit. And I know that's really hard for
Yeah.
everyone to do. I'm not speaking like I'm some sort of, expert in it. I certainly have a hard time having conversations. It doesn't
Hmm.
happen to be around death for
Hmm.
me and my family because I started young with my wee
Yeah.
ones. But I can see it in my parents, even my
Hmm.
mom for sure. Right? Like
Hmm.
I definitely see the generational change happening
Yeah.
around me, which is good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is good. So, what are some of the biggest misunderstandings you encounter when you're talking to people about grief?
All that has to go away. That it's something
Mm,
to get over. I I think that's probably the biggest one, right? Like, aren't
mhm.
you over that by now? Like, you should be moving on. Like, why haven't you emptied his closet?
Yeah.
Why, like those types of things? And I again go back to this idea that grief is probably one of the most honorable things to hold on to.
Mm,
That if I grieve, and that I will grieve for a lifetime without
mhm.
question, it doesn't go away.
Right.
Um, and it changes, right? Every day is different. Some days are
Mhm,
worse than others, but it never goes away. And so, what can you do with it,
mhm,
right? Instead of sitting there constantly fighting against it, struggling, thinking it's supposed to be over, and shaming yourself because it isn't. What
mhm,
if we actually just honored it and
mhm.
held on to
Exactly.
it a little
Yeah.
bit, right? And
There's
just said,
this
"Oh,
there's
yeah,
this beautiful interview. Oh, and I'm forgetting his name. I feel bad. One of the actors who played Spider-Man, the second of the three Spider-Mans, I'm forgetting his name now. And he did an interview with one of the late night hosts, and he brought up his mother who had just died, and he had this beautiful quote. I need to find it. I'm going to find it and put it in the comments after. But where he said that, all that grief, all that pain is just unspoken love. It's
That's
just
it.
him loving his mother and
That's
missing
it.
her. And he goes, and even though he was crying, he said, I love to talk about it because that's what it is. I'm just talking about how much I love my mom, even though she's not here anymore. And I think that that's a way that for grief that has to do with death, but then grief that has to do with other things, because we can grieve many things we have quote unquote lost,
That's
not
it.
just a person dying. I think that that's important, is that the reason that you're so upset, the reason you're feeling all those negative emotions inside of you is because you loved that person or that thing so much, and now it is no longer in your life.
So what's to get over? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so ask that, what are you trying to get over? Are you trying to get over the pain
Mm-hmm.
or the sadness or the longing? Right? I
Mm-hmm.
liken that to sitting in a rocking chair, right?
Hmm.
So we rock back and we think of all the past things that we had the honor or the luck or the
Mm-hmm.
pleasure of experiencing with them. And then we rock forward and we think about all the things that will never happen again, right?
Mm-hmm.
But very rarely do we sit in a rocking chair and not move. So how do we sit
Right.
in a rocking chair and just be present,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what we're feeling right now. Wow, I still feel sadness. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because this was big, actually. Losing my mom isn't easy. It's not an easy thing for me. For some
Uh-huh.
people, it might
Mm-hmm.
be, right? And I think that's kind of the beauty of it. The first problem is that we sit back and we expect it to be
Mm-hmm.
over. And the second thing is really that we expect everyone to go through the same type of cycle. Well, I was done that by
Right.
now, right? Or
Yeah.
that their grief isn't as honorable as someone else's because
Mm-hmm.
it's a different relationship.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that there's no it's not relational. It is deeper than that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I
Yeah.
love it.
I had actually in my life, there's been three or four now, four people and pets that have died in my greater family. And it's just been in the past sort of like 3 to 4 months, just sort of just a run of unfortunate situations for these people. And what I got asked by one person who was supporting their partner through this loss, they said, "What should I do?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And they said, "Well, you understand this." And I go, "No, I haven't experienced that loss. And even if I had experienced that loss, it's going to be different for person X versus person Y." And they said, "Well, how do I help? What do I do? Should I do X, Y, Z?" Listing off all these things. And I said, "Sit back and watch them for a second. Like maybe they just need to be ragingly angry for a few
Yeah,
days. Okay. Maybe they just need to cry in your lap for a few days. Okay.
that's it.
I mean, sure, there comes a point in time where if they are in a deep, deep depression, you start to worry about their own mental and physical well-being. That's different. But being angry for a few weeks isn't unreasonable. Something drastic was taken from them. Let them be angry. Let them be sad. Are they going to be nice to you all the time? Probably not. And that's okay too. Like you need to allow them to go through their own personal experience. And I think as a supporter of someone who's very actively experiencing a loss, it can be so hard for us, if we can take a minute for those people, because we just want them to feel better. And actually, we're the ones that need to get over our discomfort with them being so
You
upset,
got it. You got it.
right? Yeah.
Right? And like to that point, right? When we think about supporting people, often I think the most important thing that we can do
Mm-hmm.
is not expect the griever to come up with all the solutions on
Yeah,
how this is supposed to work, right? Like we
exactly.
often say things like, call me if you need me. And you're just like, really? Like, now, oh my God, not only am I going through like the hardest time of my
Mm-hmm.
life, I'm also having to come up with what you can do for me.
Yeah.
And I have to have the courage to call you,
Yes.
right? I I think we put a lot of expectations on people
Hmm.
who are going through a
Yeah.
hard time to be able to reach out. I mean, the same is true inside of healthcare, right?
Yes.
But I feel like there's more that we can do as a supporter, and that
Hmm.
is offering support and being willing to hear no,
Yes.
right?
And that's
I'm going,
okay. Yeah.
right? Like I'm swinging by the park. I'm going for a walk. Can I pick up your dog?
Yeah.
Yes, no, right? I'm going to go to the coffee shop. Can I pick you up a tea? Yes, no,
Hmm.
right? Sweeping off their car in the middle of the
Hmm.
winter, right? And not expecting them to know that it was you or
Yeah.
anything like that. There's so many different things we can do to support people. When they are
Hmm.
our partners, part of the reason why it's so hard is that we get into a situation where the griever doesn't want to, again, be a burden,
Hmm.
right? I love you so much. I need to protect you from
Right.
this feeling.
Right.
And so we often find partners not able to have big conversations around grief,
Hmm.
especially, and not, being too stereotypical, but men have a very
Hmm.
difficult time
Yeah.
talking about grief to the people that they're supposed to be caring for.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there are ways of having those conversations, but they're never easy for us to navigate, and nor should they be.
Right.
So just be willing to hear
Hmm.
no 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I'd rather you hear no 1,000 times than be alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really beautiful. And when a person is getting to the point where, you hear people say, "Oh, I laughed today," right? They're starting to get to the point where they're seeing the beauty and joy in the world again. What does it mean for you when you see someone thriving after a loss?
Mm. I think the best way I can do it is through story,
Mm.
if that's okay,
Yeah. Yeah,
right? Do we have
please
two
do.
minutes?
Yeah.
So
No, go ahead.
so a client of mine, she lost her sister and her twin
Mm.
sister, and they were also business partners. So their lives were intertwined deeply,
Right.
and her sister died of cancer. And as time went on, she had a really hard time like networking and doing all those things you have to do inside
Mm.
of business without her sister and without being able to say, well, you just have to talk to her for that.
Mm.
That was happening all the time. So what she ended up doing was pulling out like one of those, like making those little make a Lego man that you can get at a Lego store.
Yeah.
And she made one just like of her sister.
Okay.
And then she gifted everyone in the family one. And the Lego character was doing different things,
Okay.
right? And for each person, it was really cute. So every time
Hmm.
that she went to like a networking event and she felt that overwhelm of, oh my God, I'm alone, she
Right.
just reached into her pocket and held her little Lego man. She's like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not alone. She's here in this little businessy suit, and I know she's got me, right?
Right.
And I know that it seems maybe trite,
No,
right? And
it's
but the idea of sitting inside of my grief and holding
mm,
on to it in a way that has this little physical form that actually settles your heart a little bit is
mm,
where you can begin to thrive,
hmm,
because you cannot, and I'm not saying putting it down forever, but you can put it aside for a minute.
hmm,
It can actually feed what is most important to you as a person. It actually, grief is where your aliveness is.
hmm.
You can find purpose inside of that in a big way.
I think the reason that it makes people laugh, the story, is probably just the Lego part. But really, if you think about it, there's that whole story about, what is it,
Yeah,
dimes? This idea that if you find a dime on the ground,
you
someone who
got it.
died is thinking of you. So you pick up a dime and you hold it and you have this moment remembering them. I mean, that's lovely, and you just got 10 cents out of the deal. I mean, so I think it's kind of, the Lego thing's cute because not only does it give you that, what's the word I want? A talisman? Talisman? Is that the word I want? Right? That physical thing you're holding on to,
Yeah,
but it's also adorable and kind of funny, which is a good feeling to have as well. So I like that. That's really cute.
it's really cute. Like even at Christmas, like when they would get together as a family, they would all bring out
Yeah.
their little Lego person and set it on the dinner
You know,
table, right? Like it
I
was
I
just
love that.
something that they did to have her
Hmm.
there,
I
right?
really like
Yeah,
that.
it was really cute. I
Oh,
loved
that's so
it.
nice.
Yeah.
So, what can we all do just within our own individual lives, not taking on the world here, but in our own individual lives, what can we do to help shift that societal relationship that we, in particular in Canada and North America, have with grief?
Well, I think you really kind of hit it, and that's just that awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it's the first step, and I know that a lot of people have a hard time with the idea of sitting inside of hard things, without
Mm-hmm.
question, right? But if you can sit back and even just be simply honest with people around you, um, the awareness that people are struggling. I love the line. Um, I don't have words. I don't know what to say, but I'm here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that in of itself is honest and truth and being present, not in that rocking chair, just sitting in the present and saying, I'm here for you. I don't know how this is going to look, what this is going to look like. I don't know how this relationship is going to move forward, but I am here and I'm going to check in on you
Yeah.
and I'll offer you things and I might annoy you, but I am
Mm-hmm.
here. And that alone, I think, is the most beautiful thing you can do for anyone,
Mm-hmm.
is just show up,
Yeah.
actually, right? And
Yeah.
not think that your words are going to save anybody. There are no words. There
No.
are no words.
Mm-hmm.
So choose action always.
Exactly. Exactly. I think the work that you do is so important. I mean, in particular, and I think we'll see hopefully a big shift with this, just with these new generations in the workforce, in particular, the work that you do with companies. I think there needs to be a shift in that. I mean, as you said, I think previously, right, the way I react to my mother dying is going to be completely different from yours. And the fact that there's a lot of, rules and regulations around mother versus stepmother, how many days off you get to grieve, right? Things like that. I'm really hoping that there's a huge shift in that arena in putting more faith and trust in your employees that they will know when they are ready to come back and do a good job at their job, as opposed to doing, a half good job because they're still so consumed by what they're going through. So I really, I talk about you with so many people because I think it's just so wonderful, just what you are advocating for, in general, and then in particular with employer-employee relationships. It's just so important in our society that we are, not just focusing on health and wellness and mental health as well, but looking at that area of mental health that I think a lot of people like to avoid, which is grief, and how
That's
we
it.
move through that and learn to live with it.
That's it. And like Justin
Mm-hmm.
said in the comments,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the insurance capabilities and or the insurance, what's allowed, and also what you mentioned around bereavement
Mm-hmm.
policies. I think that there's something inside of this idea of just removing relations off of all bereavement
Yeah.
policies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one question I get most often inside of that
Mm-hmm.
is, well, what if they take advantage of it? And my response is always, well, then you have a cultural problem,
Mm-hmm.
not a grief
Mm-hmm.
problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to hold on to that
Yeah.
specifically. If there was one thing I could advocate for,
Mm-hmm.
it's change in bereavement policies for sure.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of people coming into conversations around planning,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to hold on to grief story inside of planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much inside of those days where you're sitting inside of writing wills or advanced plans or advanced directives or power of attorney, all of those things where you're actually sitting back having to think through past experiences that weren't quite what you needed them to be. So I really am glad you're doing this work, Mallory. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. That's how I feel about you too. We could probably go on talking forever and ever here, but we are going to have to cut it short
For
today. But
sure.
maybe we can have you back in the future with another topic
I
as well. We've
love it.
got the whole getting synced on Instagram thing down now, so we're good to go.
Believe it. Oh my God. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, for everybody who's watching this now or watches it later, this was episode 5. Episode 6 is in 2 weeks. We're having the co-founder of SideDrawer, Ali Qureshi, on to talk about his incredible platform, SideDrawer, who's one of our main partners here at Viive Planning, talk about all the work that they do to ensure that sensitive documentation is safe for all estate planners out there. So please be sure to come back in 2 weeks' time. And thank you so much, Sarah. You were wonderful as always.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.